Hey guys, my name's Andrew Davidson and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. In this video, this is the third installment of my History in Board Games series, where I basically recommend a historical game and then also some supplemental material for you to read or listen to or watch that goes along with the history or the event or the historical thing that we're talking about. In today's video, we're traveling in American history all the way back to 1972 with Watergate. So today we're talking about Watergate. Watergate is a scandal that happened in American history in 1972 by the Nixon administration. Richard Nixon was the president of the United States at the time, and in 1972 there were 5 members that were part of his administration that broke into the Watergate building, and there were some sort of illegal things that they had done with some money and things like that. And Nixon was kind of brought up on charges. He said he had nothing to do with it. There's the whole I am not a crook thing, and he ended up resigning before being thrown out of office or impeached or anything like that. So there's the 10-second history of what is Watergate. Well, it's Watergate scandal. And so they made a board game off of Watergate, which when I saw it in the store, I was like, who wants a board game on Watergate? Who even really knows much about Watergate? Like, it wasn't a huge life-changing thing in American history, really. I mean, he stepped down, some nasty stuff happened, but they made a board game. Like designers took the time to figure out all the names and all the dates and historical information, made a board game out of it. Well, interesting. Well, I checked it out on BGG, and it had some pretty good reviews. It had some high comments and some praise. And so as I saw the cover at the store, I was like, why not? So I picked up Watergate. Let's give you a little bit of an overview of how it plays. Watergate is a 2-player asymmetrical game. And asymmetrical means that the play is going to be different for both sides, and the win condition is going to be different for both sides. So one person is going to be taking on the role of the Nixon administration, and the other player will take on the role of a investigative journalist trying to expose the Watergate scandal. Now, how the Nixon player wins is he wins if he gets 5 of these red little cubes on his card. That's how the Nixon player wins the game. How the investigative journalist wins is if he can get evidence tokens, which I'll talk about in a minute, and lay them to connect to any one of these informants. And if he can connect any of these back to Nixon, that is how the journalist wins. So as you can see, 2 totally different kind of things. Like Nixon is trying to collect these red cube token things. I guess they're not even cubes, they're cylinders. Anywho. And the journalist is trying to do this whole spiderweb thing out here and, try to connect that way. How the game works is basically, it's essentially right here during every turn. This is like a push and pull, tug of rope sort of thing. Now, on your turn, players will have a handful of cards, and what they do is they will play a card for either its value up here, or for the cylinder value, or the event. And so the options are basically kind of binary. You either do one or the other, but you cannot do both. And some of these cards, such as this one, says, remove this card from the end of the game. So this is an event that will only be used once, and when you reshuffle, it won't be in your deck again. So if you pick the event, it's gone. If you pick the top part, you get to keep it. But these events are usually really powerful, which is why they say to get rid of them, if you use the event. So that's what someone does on their turn. Essentially, that's all you do. You play a card and you resolve it, and then you discard it, or you throw it out of the game if it's supposed to be out of the game. Every person has their own specific deck. This is the journalist deck. There's also the let me find the Nixon deck. So each player has their very specific cards that they use to play the game. So on your turn, you're going to be looking right here. You have your initiative token, which basically just means if this is on your side, you will be going first, which is a pretty big deal because you will go first and last. And going last is amazing in this game. And then there's the momentum token, which means if you get the momentum token, then you get to grab it and gain it at the end of the round. While Nixon, obviously, he wants to be able to take those and grab those. However, there's also these evidence tokens that I mentioned earlier. Now they start face down. Only the Nixon player is able to secretively look at them like such and see what colors they are and things like that. The Nixon player wants to pull them towards his side so that he can have them at the end of his round and not the journalist player. If Nixon has them at the end of his round, or the round, he flips them over and says, okay, this one's green. And so then he can flip it to the black side and place it on any of the green spots. You place it there or there. And it basically is a way to block off the player from trying to make connections. If they're on the journalist's side or whatever, the journalist gets to play them face up. And he can play them face up like this. Now working on his connection, right, to try to win the game. And so these have kind of a dual purpose. One side is used by Nixon to block the player, and the other side is used by the journalist to win the game. So that's pretty much a really brief overview. Oh, and there's the cat in the shot right there, the cattail of Watergate. And so players are just going to be going back and forth. When you run out of cards in your deck, you shuffle them. So you'll get them back, assuming that they're not the ones that have been thrown out of the game. And you keep playing until one of the sides wins. And that's kind of a very brief overview of Watergate. So there's a very brief overview of what you're getting into when you purchase the two-player game Watergate. As far as how it looks and a little bit of how it plays. It's an asymmetrical game, as I already mentioned, so it is a very cool game as far as how it plays, meaning I need to do what I need to do to win the game, but I also need to block what they need to do to win the game, and I can't seem to do both at the same time. And so there's a really cool, the push and pull with the little tracker there is pretty cool. Initiative is huge. As I've said, going first and going last is just I get first thing to do, and I get the final thing before the round's over. It's great. It's a really, really great game. Now, having said that, does it really feel like Watergate? Could they have slapped another theme on this? Probably. Watergate is not a really exciting thing, especially for a board game. I'm sure there's some historians out there that are like, what are you talking about? I wrote my dissertation on... Okay, we get that. But in the board game world, the Watergate scandal just doesn't seem super hot of a topic. But you know what? It works. The gameplay is awesome. Like I said before, the push and pull, the back and forth, to do good things to help me win, but do bad things to help you from not winning. But you can't do them both, so you're trying to mitigate your turns as far as can I strike and get what I need, or do I strike them and stop them from getting what they need? And it's a very kind of an outwit and an outplay sort of thing. So for a two-player game, absolutely great. The game mechanics, very, very simple, pretty streamlined. It seems like a very easy version of Twilight Struggle, which was the last game that I talked about, episode 2 in History of Board Games. In regards to the card play and how you can either use one part of the card or the other part, either or, but you can't use both, and some of the cards get thrown out of the game. Very Twilight Struggle. that does the same thing. Check my video out on that game. And so it seems very, very much like a Twilight Struggle, but super easy to play. A lot quicker than Twilight Struggle, that's for sure, by like hours. Not minutes, but by hours. And it's a lot of fun. The last thing I'm going to say is it really Watergate? Well, I don't know. How do you play a game that really feels like Watergate? I think they did their best. It really does make sense because Nixon is just trying to run out the clock for his term, and he wins if he can just kind of like under rug sweep everything, and that's how he wins the game. So he just wants that momentum of keeping his presidency going, and the journalist is trying to connect, as you saw, that like kind of spider web, trying to connect evidence back to Nixon to be able to prove like that he was involved, to get him impeached or thrown out. So yeah, it kind of does work. Is the topic the greatest? As I said, probably not. I don't think I would have bought this on just Watergate alone. But like I said, it got some praise. It got nominated. People were talking about it. It got some buzz. So of course I had to check it out. And I really enjoy this game. I highly recommend Watergate for a 2-player game. And so those are my thoughts on Watergate and history in board games. This is the final episode for now anyways. I may pick it up months and months down the line where I'll look at some more history in board games. But for now, this is the final installment. So I hope you enjoyed watching the last 3. The Tesla and Edison one, which is a great, again, 2-player game. A Cold War, Twilight Struggle, another 2-player game, super long, super thematic, very strategic. And then the final one, another 2-player game, all about the Watergate scandal in 1972. So those are my 3. I hope you enjoyed watching them all, and hopefully I'll get back to doing them again at some point in the future. But until then, I look forward to seeing all of you at the next video. Bye.